This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. I have a couple things we have to do before we get started, or we want to do. Let me pull up our land acknowledgement. So before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the land in which we are currently occupying. We at ArtsKC honor and recognize the Native Americans, Indigenous, and First Nations people who historically and presently call this land home. Included are 98 tribal groups, including but not limited to the Kickapoo, Kansa, Osage, Missouri, Potawatomi, Sioux, and many more. We commit to educating ourselves further and stewarding the land we inhabit. And for those of you who may be visually impaired, Stacy and I are gonna describe ourselves before we get started too. So I'm Tara Crame. I'm the program manager of grants at ArtsKC. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a early 30s white female with red hair. It's long, kind of halfway pulled back today. I'm pretty pale skinned. I have blue eyes and I'm gonna go with a mauve suit jacket. I was deciding between taupe and mauve, but I have a nice mauve blazer on today. And with that, I will pass it over to Stacy.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you everyone for being here. My name is Stacy Busch. My pronouns are she, her. I am also a white woman in my early 30s with red hair. However, I have short curly red hair. I have black glasses and I am wearing a bright blue button-up shirt. So thank you all so much for coming and thanks for that introduction, Tara. So today we're going to go through grant writing and we're going to have this be pretty much an hour. So we're going to kind of hit the big points and I'm going to talk a little bit about my tips and tricks and also a little bit about me. I'm the co-founder and executive director of No Divide KC. It is an arts nonprofit that creates artistic events for social causes. We do all types of events, gallery exhibitions, festivals, storytelling events, documentaries, all of the above for different parts of the community. And so we started in 2017. We're still a fairly young organization, but we have grown so quickly through the power of grants. I love grants and I love writing them and I love ArtsKC very much. They have always been a major supporter and I truly feel like in the city they are one of the most friendly organizations that want to hear from you, that want to see you succeed and are completely open doors. And that has been really powerful for me. In fact, our first grant that we wrote to ArtsKC, I was able to have individual FaceTime with the grant manager and she looked over our entire draft and we talked about it and it was such a powerful learning experience. So I encourage you all, this is a great step being here today and let's just get straight into it. So I have a short little presentation and then we'll go into the actual grant itself. Here we go. So I'm just gonna close this up. Okay, how to write grants for the arts. This is a short guide that I've created and we will start. Oh, can I? There we go. What is a grant? So this may seem like a bit of background information, but a grant is a fund given by an entity to an individual or group for a specific purpose, and it's usually linked to a public benefit. So a few important things when getting your mind around the relationship and how we're going to approach grant writing itself. It is a financial exchange. So this means that this relationship is based around one entity believing that you are responsible and dedicated enough to use their funds well and will benefit them. It is also a professional relationship and it is mutually beneficial. It's important to remember that you are very valuable to the entity that is giving the grant, and we'll get a little bit more into that later.
Before you continue, are you okay if we take pictures of your slides?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, The language and the writing style that we use for writing grants is a particular style, and it's called persuasive writing. For those of you that are artists, this is a change in how we usually talk about our art and write about our art. For instance, in art, art statements, artist bios, things like that. Persuasive writing is a style of writing that convinces the reader of your argument. And your argument is that your organization, your project deserves this funding. There are three main components to using this style of writing. It is a style that you need to be confident, assertive, and my favorite one, you need to be very clear. And we're going to look at a little bit how this writing style is used specifically while we're drafting paragraphs and while we're drafting project proposals and things like that. So this is a sentence that I like to start out with that I see a lot of artists write. It may not be this exact sentence, but there's a lot of pitfalls here in this sentence. I think that my work centers around the dark and gloomy characters in my mind. Does anyone want to jump in with any word or parts of words that you think are unnecessary in this sentence right off the bat?
I think.
Great, perfect. I think. That is not confident, assertive, or clear. We don't need that. We don't need I think. Perfect. Anything else?
My mind.
My mind. Why do you say that?
Because you are speaking, you're trying to convey a mutual affiliation between you and the grantee. So you want to be able to share something that they can agree with.
That's a good point. I would say rather than agree, we want to convince. We're telling them. We are portraying who we are in arts through the writing. So there is a version of the sentence that you could rephrase my mind. That's true. Is there any other words?
Of the mind. So make it more broad.
So instead of, that's a good question. That's a good statement. Of my mind. We could take it in a different direction.
Of the mind.
Of the mind.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I would say that we actually want to narrow it down even more specifically. We don't want to go broad. We want to go exactly what this work is. So we want to specify even more detail. Here's what I've come up with. So I took away, I think that centers around and gloomy characters. And my sentence would be, my work is about the darkness in my mind. One thing, the dark and gloomy, we don't need both of those. Too often, we like to describe things with more than one describing word, and it can be redundant and unnecessary. Centers around is something that we use colloquially all the time. And in writing, it is not specific. It literally is saying that we are centering around something. There is no actual specific point to which you are addressing. So this is a big one that we can take out and we can work on getting more and more focused every time. So I like to use about, and similarly, things like focuses on, we want to take those out and try to be direct. Some helpful phrases here on the tip side. You want to think of your writing as a laser pointer. And my personal favorite, you should shake the page and no words come off of it. There is nothing in this sentence that is not working for you. And if we can see here, my work is about the darkness in my mind. I have chosen to keep in my mind because to me, it signifies that my work is an internal process rather than an external process. I could say the darkness in the city of, whatever, or the darkness in the universe or something. So to me, I like to keep my mind because it focuses where my inspiration comes from. So this is a bit about how we can siphon our writing as we work through, as we type and get our ideas out on the page. we want to be a lean, mean fighting machine. Every word is doing something. Okay, and we can get more into this as we're looking at the actual grants too. All right, a few tips and tricks with writing grants that I've found. Some of these are a bit obvious, hopefully, but maybe one or two you haven't heard of. Ask a question. Always try to introduce yourself in some way to the entity that is giving the grant, particularly if you haven't made any contact with them before or if you're a first-time applicant. I would say it's very important. You can find the information on their website usually, who the grant manager is or who the person is that you can contact by email. One important thing when you're asking a question is to not ask something that is already stated in the application itself. That would be taking a step backwards with this approach. So what I like to do is look through the application, and in my question, I start with, I see on the application that, you know, the funding is given towards a combination of health and the arts, or something like that. Would this project be more applicable, or would this project be more applicable? Or I see on the application that you've previously funded this type of project, or something like that. So that you're showing in your question that you have already done your homework on what this grant is, and that you're very interested in finding a way to make your application competitive. Allow time for submission. So this is broadly speaking, grants take time. They always take time, even when you get quicker at writing them. So have the deadline in mind and allow proper time for preparing all of the materials. And one trick that I like to do is in my calendar, I set the deadline date as a day before the actual submission date. And then I use the submission date as the day to transfer all of my materials into the application portal. Because there's always times when internet is down or the portal isn't working exactly correctly, or, oh, maybe I didn't, you know, make my profile correct, and now I have to email the people and figure out, you know, this happens all the time actually. So I like to use an entire day to allow for the process of transferring your materials into the application submission portal. Also work in a Google Doc. So the first thing that I do when I open a grant is I transfer all the grants, all the questions into a Google Doc, and I work from there. And this is shared within my organization, so we edit together. I maybe assign questions to certain people, like the, you know, budgeting questions, and we can kind of work on it all together and edit in a separate document. Another really helpful thing is to ask to see grant applications of other organizations. So friends that you have, role models that are, you know, organizations that are working in this area that have been around longer, or any professional that you think would have interest in grant applications. Oh, sorry, is there a question? No, okay. Please ask. You know, no divide, we share our grant applications all the time. We allow people to see, you know, what we've been working on, what we've been writing. I asked to see so many grants from organizations that I've worked with in the past, and I just read through all of them, and that was a really valuable tool. And okay, this grant was accepted, and this is what they wrote. So please reach out and read a bunch of grant applications. It really helps. Lastly, maximize the free points. So the free points in a grant application are the points that are not in the rubric. So oftentimes you can see the rubric for grading in grant applications and understand a little bit about their priorities. But the free points for me are answering every question thoroughly, making sure that every question you have answered every single part of that question. If they list things in the question for things to address, I have addressed every single one of those things, even if it's at this time, this is not in our capacity, or we have a plan to execute this, by 2024 or something like that. I make sure that every aspect of the question is addressed. Also, to use the word count to make sure that you are making an effort to show that you are dedicated, that you are responsible, that this matters to you, and that you have a professional relationship here. I'm sure plenty of you have, been on panels or, been on selection committees or hiring people and see these materials for yourself. And moments when an applicant or someone may submit something that only has a few sentences or answers a question that doesn't actually address what the question asked for. That indicates, that there wasn't a lot of time spent, there wasn't attention to detail, and those are free things in the application that can, when you add them all up, can really boost your application. Especially like for me with No Divide KC, we didn't have a large financial history. We were just starting out. This was the first time we were ever applying for grants. And so we wanted to maximize every bit of the application that we could, since we knew that, some of those other points about having a long history and, big teams of treasurers and accountants, like that was not something that we had. So I think this is a really effective way of making sure that you are instilling a really powerful relationship with the grant, the entity that is providing the grant. Okay, lastly, are there any questions about that presentation? And if not, we can just move right into looking at the meat and potatoes of this thing. I can't see anyone, so you can just speak up if you want to.
That was great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Sounds like let's just keep the ball moving here. All right. So I have pulled up the ArtsKC mission support from last year. I checked to make sure it's the same this year, and we can just get going looking in here. Is this text big enough for everyone to read?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, so at this point, if you have any questions about the specific question that we're on, please go ahead and ask questions. We will have time at the end to ask questions to me and also to Tara. So I will be saving some time at the end for those. But if you have questions related to the part of the application we're on, please jump in. So the first question of the ArtsKC grant is the mission and overview. And like I said, we want to answer all aspects of the question. What is the mission statement of the organization? Provide an overview of the organization, its recent history, and a list of your upcoming programs, dates, and locations. So already with this question, I know how it's going to be formatted. So we're going to start with the mission statement, then we're going to provide an overview of the organization, then we're going to provide a list of our recent history, and we're also going to provide what our upcoming season is. So that's all that I've done here. We start with No Divide's mission statement. I add a little bit more meat into the mission statement than just our 2-sentence here. So we organize and produce artistic events that seek to link the arts with advocacy. In each event, we work with local organizations and commission local artists. Our programming includes exhibitions, documentary series, concerts, festivals, other live events, and virtual programming. And now I move into our history. Here we go. With initial support from Missouri Vocational Rehabilitation Services, No Divide KC was founded in 2016 by myself and my spouse. This is a bit more about what we do, and it took me a while to format and create this paragraph, but now I'm quite happy with it, and it's something that can be plugged into a lot of different grant applications for me. I came up with 4 principles or components that kind of show how we execute our mission. And so the first one is producing artistic programming that shares the stories of underserved and misrepresented communities. So this is about the programming. And then 2, it's about the partnership. We partner with organizations who work with these areas. 3, it's about the art, collaborating with a diverse range of artists and community members. And 4, it's about the audience, creating an inclusive and approachable environment for audience members. So this hits every aspect of how we execute our mission statement, through the programming aspect, through the partnering aspect, the artistic, and the audience. And this is something that if you craft for yourself, you will just have this paragraph and it will be applicable to so many different situations. Yes, okay, so now we're moving in, this is last year's application, to what our season is going to be this year. It's okay, in here, this was, August or September of last year. Our season is a calendar year, so I did not have every single date and venue and piece of information about every program on our season, but I'm filling in as much information as I can. So I know that we have, one project, Come As You Are. I talk about our next project. We know that it's in partnership with Charlotte Street, for instance. And then we have our 3rd annual Queer Narratives Festival. So I'm giving a brief explanation about what these are, but I, don't have specific dates listed here. And then we have selected past history, some programs that we've done in the past, and that is how I fill out this question. It's nice because it actually lists everything that you're supposed to do on here. You'll notice this is likely around 3,000 characters. Let's see. Yep. 2930. Okay, everything's going a little slow. Any questions about that? Great. Okay. Sorry that my program is now operating a little slowly here. Yeah. Oh boy. Elevator music, please. Okay. Artistic quality and intent. What are the artistic goals of your organization? What does your art strive to communicate? How does your organization assess the artistic quality of your arts programs and services? You may expand this answer with more information if applicable. So again, I want to answer each aspect of that question separately. So here we're talking about what we have to offer. And it's important when you're writing your grants to really emphasize your strengths and what you think you really bring to the table that is unique in terms of your mission statement or how you operate, how you put on the performances or artworks that you curate. So we are an artist-run organization and our budgets are structured to respect the artists. This is really important for us. We have only free submissions and we pay every participating artist. We always have arts and low-income ticketing areas. And here I just use some bullet points to describe how what our artistic goals are. Provide a safe and inclusive space. Provide greater awareness and appreciation, support local artists through fair opportunities, including artist payment, broad artistic calls for artists of all mediums and backgrounds, as well as diverse and knowledgeable selection committees. Opportunity submissions are open to all levels of artists, with selection committees prompted to fairly represent artistic medium as well as identity. This could include race, ethnicity, religion, etc. So this is really important for us as we're focused on providing artists with really quality opportunities that are also community focused. We're very interested in respecting the craft that the artists have, their time, and their ambition to present something that may not fit in other applications or opportunities, something that's important to us. Provide creative and new programming to better serve the Kansas City community. We assess artistic qualities in the following ways. we have audience feedback. We have talkbacks at most of our events. We assess through our notified board of directors. We assess by our ability to employ our participating artists, through audience attendance, just by sheer numbers at events, and by critical reviews in online and printed publications. So these are some ways that our artistic quality we monitor and we're trying to improve all of the time. So here I found that bullet points really, were a very convenient way of showing the points that we really utilize. Questions? Okay. Vibrant Kansas City, how will support for your mission help provide access to high quality and/or community-oriented arts experiences? So that's one question. What role do you see for your organization in sustaining or increasing the vibrant arts ecology of the region? That's another question. Do you have any current or upcoming partnerships / collaborations with other organizations? That's another question. This is all to talk about what community needs are served by your organization and how. I'm going to bring this up now, since oftentimes in grants I find that questions can overlap each other, or when you're writing a grant, it's like, well, I already talked about that in this, other question. I think for me, I try to never repeat myself ever in an application. So, which can be really challenging. And a lot of times questions are very similar, or I want to talk about the same things in a different question. And that is just kind of a time consuming issue that I really try to work on. Okay, well, I didn't really exactly answer this question in this section, and actually I answered this question instead of that one. So I'm going to cut this part out and put it in the question here that it applies to more. So it's challenging not to repeat yourself in these applications, but I encourage you to try not to, because again, it's just being clear and assertive and confident in your persuasive writing that actually you are answering every question without any redundancies. So here, receiving an ArtsKC mission support would greatly impact our programming. It's important, it represents a major step forward in our size and scope. We received project grants in the past, and due to that, we've had large increases in donations that organizations that are interested. And here I'm talking about really what the ArtsKC grant has done for us. And it's not just financial. It's also the accreditation. It's the, what am I trying to say? The reputation that No Divide starts to garner as we get these funders for us. And also the resources that ArtsKC provides. So it's important to kind of research, all of the areas that a grant helps you in your organization, and to think beyond the actual amount of the funding. Continued support from ArtsKC would immediately impact our budget, of course. It would also allow us to grow our organization further through fundraising by being able to claim the support of one of Kansas City's prominent art supporters. With an ArtsKC grant, No Divide would be able to increase our production value and reach larger audiences. Additionally, ArtsKC support would allow us to expand our reach with the number of partners we work with and the number of events we do annually. So that's a bit about how will support for your mission help provide access to high quality and/or community-oriented arts experiences. In addition to our main season of artistic events, we are focused on growing as a community-centered organization in 2022. So this was an aspect that we felt like we really needed to communicate in our grant applications last year. We are not just doing our large artistic events. We are now trying to do lots of different types of virtual programming and kind of monthly programming that help us grow a community more and be a part of the community more often. And so this is what we're highlighting here in this question. Quarterly storytelling series, And then simply, I just list all of our partners through each event that we're doing. Again, these are not, they are, I should say, they are secured partnerships, but they may not be the final list of seasoned partners. These are the ones that we, have agreed on, that we know of right now. And this is subject to change. And the entity for the grant would know that. So I just list all the things that we have here, our recurring events, venues, organizations, participating artists. Here we don't have the full lineup, so I just say, we are going to have 18 local queer artists for our Queer Narratives Festival. We're going to have 24 artists featured in our artist spotlight. We have some newly commissioned works. This is actually international composers here, and our sponsors. And I know that this is maybe large, but it doesn't need to be. It really shows that you've thought through, It really shows that you've thought through what your season is going to look like and how you're going to execute it. And how it's showing the grant how you're thinking about your organization and how you're thinking about executing your mission in the community. This is going to take a second here to reload. My apologies.
While that's loading, Stacy, I wanted to jump in and add
Yeah.
something too. So another thing to think about as you're writing, and I think everything you've said so far, Stacy, has been so good. It's so true to answer every part of the question and not to repeat yourself. I've never heard that as a tip before. I think that's a really good tip, because you want to use every opportunity you can to sell yourself, like you
Right.
said, to convince. But another thing to think about, and I'll show it once you're done, but I don't know if a lot of grants do this, but I know at ArtsKC, we always post the evaluation criteria online too. So that's something to think about, is like Stacy mentioned in the Vibrant Kansas City question, that we're looking for community impact. And you'll notice that when you look at our evaluation criteria, that's one of them, is community impact. So knowing what the grant committee is looking for can help kind of guide your answer too. So I just wanted to throw that in since we're loading papers, but.
Yeah, that's a great point. I forgot to mention when I was talking about the, maximize the free points, that it's great to look at those rubrics for grading. And it kind of gives you broad information about where their focuses are, but it does help, for instance, with No Divide, and I'm sure for a lot of your organizations, that there is an arts part of this and there is a community building part of this. And it shows to me kind of which one do I really want to hit hard. Is this a foundation that is funding, high, they want excellent artistic quality, or maybe they're more geared towards public facing community building? And so it gives me some information about, okay, what do we really want to focus on? What do we really want to highlight about our organization? Oh, I'm so sorry about this. I haven't quite experienced this issue before. Okay, I think we're back. Okay. Program circumstances. So this is something that's been added due to COVID-19. And for those that are starting out or smaller, like No Divide, it's something, the way that we kind of tackled the COVID-19 issue is that because we don't have a large budget. So, and we don't have a brick and mortar, for instance. So we weren't bleeding money the way that, the Kauffman Center was, or large organizations that rely on these massive events. But the real problem for us was that we needed to maximize the momentum that we were building. We needed to be out there. We needed to have events. We needed to be with our community in order to keep growing. And the way that we were growing is through people power, is through, you know, the community wanting to get involved and, you know, wanting to do stuff with No Divide. And that was the biggest loss for us, rather than financial losses, because the budget was so small. So that's how we talked about it here as a younger and smaller organization. Our financial losses were not as severe as large organizations with many employees and spaces. However, we were experiencing significant difficulty in maintaining and increasing the momentum of our organization. It is crucially important for us to hold events and make connections in the community. The amount of work needed to increase virtual programming efforts, social media management, fundraising, and other areas during the pandemic is a heavy burden for unpaid positions. I'm sure you all have experience with that. Our 3-year strategic plan ending in 2024 includes a path to salaried positions, and we are still committed to reaching this goal. So we did create a strategic plan, which I encourage you all to do. It doesn't have to be like a massive undertaking. It can just be like some goals that you want to hit within 3 to 5 years. And for us, the most important thing was introducing salaried positions, because, you know, we were a working board, we still are a working board, but no one was getting paid for any, you know, of the organizational aspects. And burnout is something that we all need to really try to avoid at all costs. And truly, the way to buoy your organization and the way to provide security is through employment. And it's something that I have a hard time, because I'm an artist, I'm a musician, and this is a passion project. And so many arts organizations are just passion projects of artists. We're not entrepreneurs, we're not business, you know, minded people all the time. That's not our background, at least. So a lot of times we undervalue the work that we put in. And it's been told to me by many people, including, you know, the ArtsKC financial Wonder Woman, Catherine, that employment and focusing on that is a way to make your stamp that this organization means business and it values the work that it's doing, and it's something to take seriously. And so we reached this goal this year. So we were 2 years early, yay. Okay, that's about our COVID plan. And then the rest of it is pretty straightforward. Program attendance, you know, this is low. It was a COVID year, and it doesn't include our virtual programming. And that's okay. Don't be afraid, you know, about the number here. You've proven in other areas that you're really working in the community and that you're doing great things. So this is not something to stress about. I'm just saying that as someone who has stressed about it before, and maybe you have as well. Staff, board of directors, this is not so much about about grant applications, but board development is really important. It's important to have a diverse board, and to utilize the board in as many ways as possible, like I said, because these are the people, if you're small and if you're just starting out, that are doing the work. So this is a list. It's important. Every grant has a different way of listing the board of directors. So please pay attention to that. This one wants their professional affiliation, their name, board position, and a professional affiliation. So we do that. Demographics. We list our demographics as percentages. I think that in a few different ways: race, gender identity, and a few other factors that we think are important for us. These are things that we consider in board recruitment, so we've put them in our demographics. Okay. And we do the same thing for our audience. The way we gather this information is through our mailing list, and we sometimes do surveys after events. I don't know if there's any questions about that. And then a diversity statement. This is another thing that as an organization just need to craft one. And it's really, it can seem a little daunting, but if you read other people's diversity statements, you can kind of use them as templates and apply it to you. ArtsKC has a diversity statement. I mean, most organizations, I shouldn't say most organizations, many organizations in the arts are writing diversity statements and have them. You can even look at ours. Ours is on our website. For us, it's we're firmly committed to representing our mission of diversity and equity within our board, the artists we collaborate with, our partnering organizations, and audiences. So for us, this means our mission of diversity is inside the way we operate and outside who we operate with and who we work with. No Divide KC's programming is intended to foster inclusivity and sensitivity to differences across race, ethnicity, religion, ability, class, gender expression, and sexual orientation. We uphold these fair values of fair access and sensitivity in all aspects of our functioning, which include our casting, our rehearsals, our performances, our narratives and concepts. And this was actually really for artists to know that our spaces, our rehearsal spaces, our casting spaces, our performance, all of this, we are dedicated to providing safe spaces for all artists who we're working with. So I felt this was important for artists to be able to refer back to and make sure that we're upholding that. No Divide KC's programming is intended to foster an aware and accepting community. We do this by sensitively conceptualizing artistic events that incorporate a vast scope of artists, partnering with organizations that serve these areas, and focusing on engaging audience members from the communities we serve. So again, it's just those 4 prongs inside our organization, our partnership, our artists, and our audiences. And with that, diversity. Okay, we're still going. I feel like I'm talking a lot. Please reach out if you have anything. So this is an opportunity for you to show your efforts and your progress in diversity and inclusion. And this can take many different routes. Diversity is not one thing, equity is not one thing, and inclusion is not one thing. We're not all working in the same areas. So, to think critically about really how your organization is tackling this, and then talk about it. It doesn't have to be the most obvious answer to this. You can get creative and you can really think about, well, what are we doing that really tackles this, that really works? And now I want to talk about it. And they're talking about, in the past 2 years. This is including inside your organization and audiences and participants. So for us, our mission is already rooted in diversity and inclusion. In 2020, we expanded our board, and we are committed to representing socioeconomically diverse people across our board of directors. And also, as we continue to expand, we intend to continue to diversify. This year, we established board demographic, what is the word for that? Minimums, I should say, so that we are truly, numerically representing the things that we value. So we have a 40% BIPOC minimum, a 70% LGBTQ minimum, 20% people with disabilities minimum. And, that stuff is, we don't like to quantify people as, demographics and checked boxes, but it is one tool where we can say if we're succeeding or we're not succeeding, and we need to do better or we're not doing better. And so it's one aspect in creating an organization that really values inclusivity. And there's a lot of kind of intangible, not numerical ways of doing that, as I'm sure you probably all already know and feel. And then I go on to talk a little bit about our the exact things that we did throughout our season and how they empower people.
Hey, Stacy.
Yeah.
It looks like Melissa has a question.
Great,
Ye-
Melissa.
Yeah, it might be more of a statement, Stacy, and it's that when you look at diversity, equity, inclusion, all of that, it's become like this, I don't know, soup of
Right.
words, and a way to really look at that and be genuine about it is to look at what has been excluded or who has been excluded historically. I mean, there might be in the past year where people have put people of color on the board, where there's more diversity with boards, beyond race. And that's one thing, but it's really about what are we doing in this community to advance inclusion, and then looking at our own organizations, looking at how are we being equitable, like in hiring, in what we produce, how we promote, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that statement. And I think it's so true. It's an uncomfortable area because they have become these like hot button words that that corporatocracy has started to kind of indicate, and it loses its value. And I think for people that are working in the community, like everyone here, we know what our mission is and how we're trying to do that. And it is through kind of these, it's not through percentages and number, and all of that. It's through the relationships that we're building and the trust that we're building, and that takes time. And so thank you for saying that. And I think when you're crafting these statements, even though it can feel uncomfortable, like, okay, I have to kind of put this into this language, I encourage you to, like you said, be as truthful and honest about how you're really trying to do this. And I think that reads, very strong in grant applications.
Yeah, I'll second that, Stacy. I've sat in on our committees, and how do I say this nicely? They have a good BS meter. They know when you're just putting fluff in there, and they know when you're being honest and genuine and saying, like, for example, I'm saying, like, as a person in your grant application, we've struggled with diversifying our board, but we are doing this A, B, and C. We've been giving free tickets. We've been partnering with these organizations from other areas of the community, what have you. So don't put it up to something it's not. Be honest. And if you're struggling with, be honest about that. And if you're doing amazing, obviously be honest about that too. So I just want to second that. I think honesty is good advice.
Yeah, and we're entering into the questions time frame, so please feel free. I think for me, like with No Divide, we really wanted to, and still, this is a continuing work, make sure that the way we look on the inside is the way that we are operating on the outside, and that things, like I said, trust and respect takes time, and it's not beneficial to rush out and try to check boxes or make percentages happen, because that's not genuine and it's not really answering the question. So I think answering those questions with honesty is really the strongest way to tackle that. And at least for ArtsKC, they don't want to hear a bunch of flubby words about, diversity and inclusion and, some like brochure somewhere. And so, yeah, thank you. Is there any questions at all about anything that we've gone through or statements?
I appreciated saying, you know, be true to who you are. Like, we are also a really small organization. So knowing that that's not going to work against us, that that's just who we are is who we are, and in the hopes of expanding and growing. So I like that feedback.
Mhm. One thing that I was going to say, and I think I maybe missed a slide or something, is to emphasize that you have power. We have power in this relationship. And I know for me as an artist, I have certainly been like, well, no one is going to respect, no one's going to understand this work. I'm not in the in crowd. I'm not in the, cool part of this community where you win awards and you win these things. And my mentality shifted, and I saw a lot of success when I thought that my work as an artist and my work as an entrepreneur, as an arts business person, could go in the same direction, and not like all of this networking, all of the BS, playing the game, pandering. That didn't take me back. I could actually look at that in a different way, and it all moves me forward because I'm not playing the game. I'm not trying to pander. I'm trying to be authentic and genuine and confident with what I know to be true. And that's all that I can do. And if they decide to award me something or not, I'm going to continue to do this work anyway. So I am unmoved. I am unchanged by this whole thing. And that really relieved my comparison and my, sensitivity. And it really frees me up to not feel, mentally ill, frankly, burned out, depressed, discouraged, because we really lose, all of us here today, we lose when one of our light goes out. And the reason that happens is because we're discouraged, or we believe that we won't be valued, we won't be seen, and there's nothing that we can do. And in the arts, burnout is the #1 cause of death. And we have to protect our mental health. And in order to do that, we have to feel that we have a stake in this, that we're important, and that we have power, and that we will continue to do this whether or not we are supported. And that mentality actually saw more success, and it relieves me of a lot of burden. And so I just want to say that because I know it's so true for artists, that we just feel like we won't ever, see that. But kind of getting out of it, and having that objective viewpoint where you are you and unmoved, causes more effective writing, and makes your work better, and also relieves you mentally, is what I've found.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, I agree. Thank you very much for sharing that. I really agree with that. I think that a lot of artists really do struggle with that. And I've been at it for a long time, and also working with a lot of things happen to artists has been a real loss. I've seen some people just kind of lose their light. And I know they become frustrated because they're trying to acquire funding, or they're trying to get this organized, or trying to get this group of people together. And so I really appreciate what you said, because I've seen that actually happen to people. And I think it's important that artists support one another and make sure that we all know we've all been here or there, at one time. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you all. If you want to see our application, our budget documents, any other applications, please reach out. If I edit plenty of people's writing, if you want some persuasive writing, editing, red ink done, I'm happy to do that as well. So please feel that, everyone, we want you to succeed, and we want to succeed together. And I do actually think that ArtsKC is one of the best organizations that feels that way too in the city. So, and they show that because, sorry, last year, this is my last point. Last year, Tara told me that over almost 90% of grant applicants were awarded a grant. And that is an insane percentage. And this year, I think you were saying it's going to be around the same. So
we're hoping, yeah.
Yeah.
We have a good bucket of funding. So for this grant specifically for Mission, it's our unrestricted funding. So we're always going to prioritize that because we know that that's what arts organizations need. And yeah, last year, I think it was like 89%, but yeah, we had an outstanding year. So you have a good shot. So take your shot,
That's amazing. And I just want to go back a tiny bit to what Stacy was talking about, the mental health piece. The mental health providers and foundations are now becoming more and more aware of how arts impact youth in terms of mental health. What you're raising about the artists going through these experiences, I think is an area that's not so common knowledge with mental health funding providers. And so just would encourage folks, especially a partnership or collaboration of organizations that approach the main, I'm just going to say it, Health Forward Foundation, and maybe as a collective, make a request of applicant defined grants where you define what the issue is and say, this is what we need in funding to help us, address whatever issues or objectives we have. Just a reminder that there's funding out there to help artists with that.
Thank you. Yes.
That's great. That's a great point. Do we have any other questions? I want to be respectful of people's time. And I didn't get a chance to share it, but just so you know, if you go to the ArtsKC website and you pick go to the grants page, any of the grants pages, the ones that are open anyway, you can see the application, you can see the evaluation criteria. They're PDFs, which isn't so accessible. Sorry about that. It's kind of our system, but you can see it. It's under, the application is usually under how to apply. The evaluation criteria is under evaluation. So, and if you have any questions as you're applying, don't forget the deadline is end of October. So you still have some time. Any questions at all, shoot me an email, grantmaking@artskc.org. We're here to help. We want everyone to get funding. We really do. I mean, if only we had all the money in the world, we would give you all of it. But so reach out, we're here to help. Stacy's here to help too. And thank you all for coming.
That's great. Thank you.
It was really nice to see all your faces, and even if it's just your names, really nice to see you all. Feel free to reach out to us at any time. That's what we're here for.
I dropped my email in the chat there, so please reach out.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Stop the recording.